Okay, so hey everybody, it's Tiffany here. I know it's been a while since I've done a video, and I promised some of the members of a online support group that I was going to do a video with my support person, my husband, Aaron. Say hi, Aaron.
What's up?
And so it's long overdue, but we're going to try to do this now and make it quick. So I wanted to do a video to talk about what it's like being the support person or caregiver for someone who has HS. And excuse me if my eyes are all over the place because we're doing this with our phone and not the camera. And so it's a little odd. So I'll make a point to try to look this way. But anyway, the information is still going to be valuable. So I'm just going to ask him a few questions and see if we can give everyone a glimpse into what it was like for him as a caregiver and him being a husband, watching his wife go through a lot of things and basically just having to, help out with a lot of things that he probably wasn't expecting. Okay? So first thing, Aaron, could you share with everyone what it was like for you before I was diagnosed as a support person?
I guess I'd say a little bit frustrating because you got a recurring condition that you're really not sure what it is. Like you get sick of something and it passes, or you get a weird bump or something and it passes.
Mm-hmm.
But it's just kind of. It's not even like it goes away and comes back. It's kind of like it kind of reduces, comes back, and you never really get rid of it. And it kind of concerns you because it could be a lot of different things. You might start to wonder about what kind of conditions do stuff like that, and I can't remember if you've been diagnosed at that point, that time when your arm was just swole up so bad. At that point, I don't think you've been diagnosed yet.
No.
Because basically all of this stuff was building up under the skin, and your arm was just so swollen, but there was no
Couldn't figure out
point.
what it was.
Couldn't figure out what it was, and it's like there was no obvious point of release for it to come out.
Right.
And it just kind of makes you
And I remember it being
wonder.
very hot. Around
Yeah,
that
I
time,
remember you said it kind of felt like it was burning.
it felt like fire. So, and y'all can relate to this, just this internal flame that's always going. So, not long after that, I remember getting an IND done, IND done, and then we finally did go to a surgeon. Do you remember? We went to that surgeon, and he was wondering why nobody did a mammogram. Had me worried, thinking it was something breast cancer related or cancerous. But I was thinking, gosh, it didn't seem like it would be like this in my armpits and inflamed like this and getting drained and stuff.
Yeah, well, truthfully, he didn't really know anyway.
No, they
But
didn't care.
I think a lot of doctors are just not familiar with the condition. Particularly, I don't think, it's my personal opinion, I don't think doctors invest a lot of time on conditions they know they can't get rid of because,
Right.
They don't really want to manage you. They kind of want to fix it. That's kind of how doctors are trained, I believe.
Or give you a bunch of medication.
Yeah. So I can't make it go away, but I can medicate you to death. Go and get out of here.
Right.
Kind of thing. But this is one of those things you need a doctor that's very familiar with it and is pretty much in the mode of being prepared to help you control or manage the condition as best you can. You need a doctor that kind of accepts that this isn't one of those things that you fix on a person. It's the kind of thing that you have to have patience with to help them manage it in the long term.
Right. And so, and most of y'all already know this. We've talked about this on here. We've talked about it in some of the Facebook groups that we're in. So let's move on to talking about the times where I had to have the procedures before the big one. Just the regular procedures. Like, remember that time I had my pilonidal cyst removed or operated on, and they also went in and drained my arm because I was sedated. I think it was that moment where I realized something is bad and something major is going on with my skin, because I went in for the pilonidal cyst surgery, but when wound care came to the house, The tailbone wasn't even hurting. When she took the packaging out of my arm, I almost passed out. And that was the beginning of you kind of like being my caretaker. Do you remember?
Yeah, I remember. That was at the last townhouse we was in. And it was packed pretty deep. I remember when she took it out, it was a lot in there, but it's just I think the hole was kind of wide and it was deep in there, and he packed it a lot. So I think the work on your arm was more
Oof,
than
it was
than
so
what you went in
painful.
there for. It feels like he did more work on cutting that out of your arm than really working on the pilonidal cyst, which was the thing you had the surgery
Right,
for.
right.
But
So,
he didn't really cut anything out. I think he cut it wide. He cut it wide to get it to come out, but it was deep not because he cut stuff out, but because the tunneling was so deep
it was
underneath there.
deep.
You couldn't see it because of that skin. He removed the skin that was on top, which was kind of wide, but that depth was just from the tunneling from the HS.
And so, and that's the part we were missing. I didn't learn about tunneling until I was in the Hope for HS support group. And after he did that, when I went, I think back for my follow up, I talked to him about it. And that's when he was like, "You're going to have surgery." And I think they tried to talk me out of it, saying that it would be, if they did a skin graft, it would be like, unnatural because it would be skin that's not normally under your armpits. And so, anyway, let's fast forward and talk about your role as a caretaker. Once I finally did have the armpit surgery, it was
Mm-hmm.
bilateral, and you all know from my previous videos, or if you don't know from my previous videos, it was bilateral. Uh, I think they call it auxiliary. I don't know, but my armpits both operated on. They tried to stitch them closed, and the areas were so wide that the stitches popped open on one of my armpits. Um, that was bad. So I want you to kind of briefly share with them how you felt and what you learned about it, and the trial and error with our wound care, basically.
Uh, well, I guess in my mind, I kind of felt like I had mentally prepared myself for it because, the way the surgery was described to me, as far as what the doctor was going to do, I was, in my mind, prepared to see some, significant differences in the area that the surgery was going to take place in. Because to me, it looked like it was going to be a lot of flesh removed. So, in your mind, if you're going to go the surgery route, you need to be prepared
And I wasn't, y'all.
because,
I was not ready.
so I'll give this analogy because, I had to take off work and my supervisor had asked me about my wife because I've had to take off work a couple of times to take care of her. Which where I worked, they were always cool about it. They never gave me any grief. They have a take care of your family kind of attitude, so that kind of worked in my favor. An analogy of that I gave him, of the procedures, like most people like ice cream. So you go to the store, you buy some ice cream, you take the top off of it, and there's that little thin sheet of paper once you take the top off. So you take the little thin sheet off, then you got your ice cream scoop, and you scoop that deep layer off the top of that ice cream, and you got that deep canal right there. It's just like that, except
Hmm.
it's human flesh that you're scooping out.
Thanks for that picture, by the way. I don't think you told me that, but okay, go ahead.
But I'm just trying to give, since we're doing the video, I'm trying to give the best analogy I can of what you might see because it's not just cutting a line
Hmm.
and opening it. It's opening up and then scooping flesh out that
Right.
is infected. And I think, which is a good thing because of the way your doctor did it. He didn't just scoop out the infected flesh. He took some of the flesh that was around it
Right.
because it's kind of like because it spreads to the skin that looks good before it actually starts to manifest. It's kind of like if you got drywall Like if your house got flooded and you got drywall and you need to cut out that drywall, you need to cut out the part that has mold on it, and you need to cut out several inches above that to catch it before it spreads to the whole thing. But that's kind of the best analogy I can give about what you might expect to see. And in your case, the stitching was wide, so I mean the wound was wide, so the stitching ultimately didn't hold, I believe, on the left side, and eventually they just took them out. They just took them out, and that's when we started using that cream.
No, they didn't take it out. They left them dangling because he didn't want to mess with the area. You just so
Eventually, he did take them out, but
yeah, it was
he did take them
bad.
out eventually. But I think when you went there and told them that the stitches were coming open, they just kind of left it and
At
just
one
said
point,
bandage it really
my
good.
my first follow up, I think it was still draining a lot, and he opened like two on the corner so it could drain, and that did it. Over the next week or so, they just all unraveled. They unraveled.
But after that, they gave us something to put on it. It was
Sulfur.
like a sulfur cream, but when you put it on there, it kind of filled the wound. You kind of put it on there till it fills the wound kind of level, and then you cover it. And actually, I think you started healing faster from
Right.
that
But
because
that was about 3 or 4 weeks into it.
yeah,
Because
because this
prior to that, it wasn't. It was healing very slowly.
yeah, because I think this stuff. It also, I mean, I think the healing progressed better with that, but the main point of all of that was to also prevent infection with such a wide wound. But I'm not trying to scare anybody away from the surgery. It's just you have to be prepared for what you're going to see because you're going to see it, and whoever's helping you manage this, they're going to have to see it to manage your wounds. Maybe your surgery won't be as extensive as the one was for my wife. Maybe they won't have to take as much. But in our case, it was significant, and we did the bilateral, which I was glad you did the bilateral because I would say do it all at once and don't put me through it twice. If that's the way I'm
Put
gonna
you through it twice. Don't put me through it twice.
well, if I'm the person that has to deal with it, that
Right.
would be my
Well, that
thinking.
and you thinking about time off and whatnot.
And the other thing is if you do one arm and and it throws you for a loop after you see what they had to do, you might get skittish about doing the other side even if you know you need to do it.
Right. So let's back up for a minute. So I want y'all to take note of two things here. And sorry if the phone is shaking, but take note of two things here. One, my husband can uh, take you down memory lane on this. If you've seen my previous videos, this is the exact same information because he was there with me step by step from the time where it started off as like little dimes under my arms, dime sized little peas under my arm, to full blown HS tunneling and all that stuff happened rather fast. Well, within a year, it just got worse. But he knew how my body was responding to the tape. He knew the advice my doctors was giving. And he never minimized my pain, my suffering, my condition. I see a lot of people who say that maybe their family or their spouses aren't supportive, they don't understand, or you got those friends who say things like, "Oh, I get boils too." If you have that mindset, and this is the person that's probably going to be helping you with your wound care, they're going to have a change of heart when they see the wounds. It's not just a boil, it's not just an abscess. Um, because I wasn't prepared for it. He was more obviously more prepared for it than I was. When I saw what my arms looked like, I had to turn my back. I couldn't. He couldn't change my bandages in front of the mirror for the first week or so. I couldn't stomach seeing it. Like I would be nauseous and lightheaded just from seeing how mutilated my armpits looked, and that was with the stitches in. That was before the stitches even popped open. Um, and so I wanted to make sure you guys paid attention to that as a support person. Whoever your support person is, they cannot jump into being your support person after the surgery because the surgery can be extensive. It could be a long healing process. He was washing me. He was helping me, and every time I went to the bathroom, he was helping me. He was helping me get dressed. My armpits were useless. My arms, I mean, they were just there. Remember, I draped the sweater over my arms for like the first 2 weeks
Yeah.
because I wanted the bandages covered up, and I wore the same halter top dress for like the first 2 weeks or so. I couldn't do anything. There's no need to wear a bra. Um, I just couldn't. The whole area was no good. So having someone who's going to help you during that time period, they need to be around now because it's time consuming. The bandage changes, and
Yeah.
it is mentally is tough. It's challenging.
It's you don't want to feel like you're just thrust into it. So if you're watching this and this is something that's on the horizon, so if you got your partner with you, your spouse, whoever it is going to be helping you get through this, getting in the mindset together, I think would help. Looking with retrospect on our situation, the better you are, the both of you are prepared, the better. Especially
Mm-hmm.
if your doctor is telling you that there's going to be some significant removal of flesh. You need to be prepared for that. And the wound care can be quite tedious. In our case, it was at least twice a day
About
before
30
work.
minutes each time too.
Yeah, it took about a half hour to do both sides. I had to do it before work, and I had to do it when I got back from work.
And you worked second shifts,
Yeah, I
so it
worked.
wasn't a 9 to 5 schedule.
Yeah, I worked 3 to 11. So when I got up, probably about an hour and a half before I really had to be leaving out the door because I never wanted to rush through a bandage change.
Partly because
Uh,
it hurt to take the tape off. The tape was
yeah,
pulling my skin off.
that medical tape that they give you from the hospitals, it really bonds well to the skin, but doing it day after day after day, it wears on the skin. Your skin will
Mm-hmm.
become very
So sensitive.
sensitive, and it can become quite painful. But
And I'm sorry, let me interrupt real quick. He was also patient because I would get angry when it was time to take the tape off because it was so painful. But Aaron was very patient with me. And you know what? What was the trick? We had to learn to peel the tape off in the opposite direction. So instead of going right to left, we started going left to right, and that helped. But it took what? We got in the shower to make it wet to see if it would help. That made it worse because the paper separated from the adhesive.
yeah, don't do that.
We tried all types of things, but he was patient the whole time.
Yeah, so I mean, it sounds trivial, but if you're going to be doing this day after day, taking off the tape, it kind of matters. So what we start to
Matters.
do is as we peel it, we press the skin away from it
Hold the
at the
skin.
same time and just kind of do it incrementally instead of trying to strip it
Don't
off.
try to rip it off like a band-aid.
Because
Do not. It's
yeah.
just pain on top of pain.
But the thing about it is, you need the good tape as much as painful as it'll be. And your skin might be different. Everybody's sensitivity
Mm-hmm.
could be different. But if the tape hurts, taking it on and off, the truth of the matter is you need a tape that's going to bond well to hold your bandages together.
We ended up finding a perforated tape
Yeah.
that felt more almost not like cloth, but it had a different texture to it. Not
Yeah.
like a synthetic or plastic texture, but more
Yeah. It had a perforated
like
look
a
and
fuzzy texture to it.
it had some designated lines where you could tear it off in squares if you want to. I
And
don't know the exact name of it.
but we was taking it. We were getting it from the VA hospital to the point that we were asking for it at every appointment.
Yeah, I don't know who your doctor is gonna be at the VA hospital. They was
No, they probably at the VA
loading
house
us up with some good
they
stuff.
gave us
So
a ton of supplies, so we didn't really have to ask for much,
yeah, well, I kept some stuff of our own, because I didn't want to depend on them for everything.
like
But
gloves.
the main thing was the bandages, and they had a better tape. It was strong enough to hold the bandages, but it was much easier to get off.
That
Eh,
and the long Q-tips
Yeah, those are
because
good for packing.
that helped with packing and cleaning around the stitches and stuff.
Yeah, I found those to be helpful, but twice a day. So I'm working 3 to 11, about an hour and some change before I go to work. We do the first bandage change. I got home about 11:30. Do the second bandage change. So go to bed about midnight.
No,
30
about
to midnight.
12:30. We would finish about 12:30,
Yeah,
and so it was a lot. Thankfully, we had relatives took the kids out of state. They were gone for 2 months. I needed them gone the whole time. By the time they came back, I had just gotten the stitches finally removed. So,
Yeah.
um, I really wanted to just kind of touch on your experience and something about the wound care because somebody asked me advice about the wound care and whatnot, and I would say before the wound care, as a potential caregiver or support person, if you can't make it to their doctor's appointments, know when their appointments are so you can at least ask, what did the doctor say? Check in with them because it shows that you're preparing yourself and you're concerned. And even if you know they have an appointment coming up, ask if it's something you're concerned about. Ask the doctor if they know they're going to stitch it closed, if it's going to be a skin graft or something. Remind the person you're going to be helping and taking care of things that they might forget about because there's so much going on. My job, my recovery, my health insurance. So you might be thinking about something different because they're worried about other stuff. What about my kids? Am I going to be able
Yeah.
to function? So know when their appointments are coming up and be um, informed about what the doctor says about potential infection, wound care, um, whatever the case may be. So I really just want to leave y'all with some advice, the best advice, or something that maybe he would think is something you really, out of all the things we talked about, really need to know. Number one tip, babe, or advice.
Uh, well, I'm gonna put this in the context of, if you're a couple watching this together, and you got one person that's gonna have to deal with the condition, and the other person's gonna be there to manage you through it. So if you're in my shoes as the wound care provider, I would say, you need to be in the mode of this is not really a curable condition. It's just like anything else that could happen health wise between you and your partner. I don't really get sick. I don't really have a lot of health problems.
Mm-hmm.
But 10 years from now, that could change, and I could come down with something I can't really get rid of, and there's nothing you can do about it. We don't really get to pick the things that we may have inherited from the generation before us. So in that context, when you take your vows, it really comes to fruition. Sickness and in health. So if you're in that context like we are, be prepared to fulfill that. Uh, if this is something that's upcoming, if you're talking to your doctor, considering your options, if you go the route that we went, and I don't know how much cutting your doctor is going to have to do, but it was significant in our case. Be prepared. In full disclosure, I've had EMT training before. I've had first aid wound care training in the military. I'm not a squeamish person. I watch both our kids come out, and so so watching it, so seeing the wounds changing the dressings to me, not really a big deal as far as having to see the work after the doctors are
I think
finished.
he enjoyed it. He enjoyed telling me what to do,
No,
ripping tape off. No,
but you
but
might be different. Some people, they see a drop of blood and they're ready to pass out on the
right,
floor.
he was a good coach for me.
But if you're somewhat squeamish and you not sure that you can handle it, start thinking about who you may want to turn to kind of help you guys get through this. You may want an in-home nurse,
Mm-hmm.
you
Wound
know.
care.
You may want to have somebody come by that's a professional that
And
can
that can
help you.
show you a couple times how to do it and watch you do it so that you can get familiar with it. Because we had wound care for one of my procedures and she only came like twice, I think. And after that, you started doing it. And
Yeah. But if we wanted
ugh,
to, she would have kept coming, but of course we had to pay for that.
yeah,
But you will need someone in your life who can help you manage this. And I'm particularly saying it in the context of the location of where you got to get work done. If it's under armpit like it was for her, you're going to be very hard pressed to do that yourself, especially if you get a bilateral because you got one arm too jacked up to go over there and help the other arm, even if you
right.
could see under
Ugh,
there, right?
yeah,
But if it's
bad.
somewhere flat facing, like say it's on your stomach,
Groin.
on your leg or something, you may be able to do that
Probably
yourself.
not so much legs, more so groin,
Yeah.
armpit,
Well,
groin,
she's more familiar with the
breast.
places than I am, but certain areas on the body you could probably do yourself.
Right.
if you're out there and you're particularly struggling with it under your armpit,
You
it's
gonna need
very
some help.
unlikely you're going to be
And
able to
don't do
manage
like
that.
I did. He went to work and I was like, I'm good. I'm gonna go grocery shopping. Everything I needed was on the top shelf. This was like 2 or 3 days after surgery.
Yes, because all you're going to do
Ah,
is work the wound even
and I
more.
was trying to drive, and it was about 15 minutes out of the house. And by the time I made it back into the house, everybody was helping me in the grocery store. Ma'am, can I help you? And I was like, thank God. People like they could see it. Something's wrong with this lady. I had somebody ask if I just got a tattoo, and I'm like, no, I had surgery.
Yeah.
And what happened? I got home, and my arms all the way down to my fingertips were throbbing, and I barely moved my arms. I do not recommend it. So have somebody available to run to the store, run errands for you,
And
do stuff
start
before you go into surgery.
start thinking about it now. If you don't have anybody that's in your life, or the person in your life might not have the stomach for
Right,
what's coming, but you will need some assistance, particularly considering where you may have to get the work done at.
right,
The other thing, like we was talking about, I say be patient. It might seem tedious to do the wound care, but you're still not dealing with the condition itself.
mm,
So, and like I said, it's one person today. A couple years from now, it could be you, and it could be something else.
yeah. What's the saying? You never see the rain fall on one man's house,
Mm.
so the shoe can easily be on the other foot.
No, yeah, but and over time, we just kind of learn the what works for us as far as managing the conditions. When she tells me I feel like I got a hot spot or something, I'm like, okay, let's get on it right away. My
Right,
mindset is, if you think that's what it is, don't give it the opportunity to start manifesting and get bigger than what it is.
right,
I think if you catch it while it's small, the less the work they have to do on you to actually get rid of it. If it's spread and gotten pretty big and significant, now they have to do more work to get rid of it.
right.
And in our case, just so we're clear, we did not do the skin graft under the arm.
No,
So we just stitched it closed, or tried to
attempted to.
stitch it closed.
Yeah,
But uh, if you're the person getting the work done and you're particularly under the arm, uh, you may find it different using your arm even after it's well healed, because
yeah,
the skin under your arm is meant to be there. If you're going the route that we took, you will end up with skin under your arm that was not meant to be there.
yeah. So I
And
have
you'll notice a
skin.
difference in how your arm feels. If you want to stretch your arm out and reach,
Yeah, it's
you'll,
different skin under there. So I couldn't imagine what it would feel like if it was a skin graft. But
yeah.
this is not the skin that was originally there because I could tell they pulled it real tight. But so I don't want to prolong it much more. So I think he left us with some good notes. One last thing I would say, thank you, babe. One last thing I would say is, whoever your support person is going to be, and if it's a relative, a close friend, somebody who's your ride or die, and they're gonna be there with you. They're there with you now. Make sure your doctor knows who that person is, so they can speak to the doctor on your behalf. Sometimes they can ask questions. They'll feel comfortable or welcome to ask questions on your behalf in appointments or follow-up appointments or even your pre-op appointments. So make sure your doctor knows who this person is, so the doctor can give them clear instructions as well. Because when I came out of the operating room, it was hours later, and I was like, "What took so long? How long was my surgery?" And they just kind of like sent me home because it was nighttime. I got there like 11 that morning. It was nighttime, and I was asking him on the way home what happened, which I should have realized my arms were carved up like a jack-o'-lantern. But because it took a long time. I was in the operating room for what, 5 or 6 hours?
Something like that. Yeah. So
A
they
long
did a
time.
lot of work, but that goes into that mindset of being prepared. It's if you got to the point that we got, because I told you, it was so bad that it had nowhere to escape to, that your arm had swelled up that one time.
Yeah.
But just being together, prepared, and be prepared to figure out what's going to work for the two of you going forward,
Right.
because the possibility of reoccurrences or small flare ups, we still got to learn how to manage that and decide what to do when that happens. And the one thing, we are on the same page about is we don't play around with this. If we have a suspect feeling about any of these potential areas on the body, we don't wait.
Yeah. And I let him know also. I give him a heads up. I even give my kids a heads up, the oldest one anyway, because it is draining on your energy, obviously, and possibly another surgery coming up. So anyway, that's our story, Aaron's perspective of being a caregiver. I hope y'all found the information we shared with y'all to be insightful. Um, like I said, just to recap, your support person, they need to know what's going on. They need to know your doctor. They need to know when your appointments are, not just so they can be nosy, but to be a support person, obviously. How was your checkup? How was your appointment? What are they saying? Um, be mindful of your wound care. Ask for advice on how to treat the wounds post surgery or even on a regular basis, even if it's not surgery. Um, and communicate with one another. Communicate with one another. And I will, last thing I would say, encourage the person, your warrior, your HS warrior. Encourage them. Because you remember, you used to get off late and we used to go to Smoky Bones.
Yeah.
Because they stayed open till like 2 in the morning. We didn't have the kids, and I had surgery. I've been in the
You
house
have to
cooped
give
up all
yourself
day.
a venue for some stress relief through all of
We
this too.
did. We would still. He kept me entertained despite that. And I had my moments where I would break down crying because I was wondering, like, why me? What about my kids? I don't want this to happen. But he did what I expected him to do as my husband, as my caregiver. Actually exceeded that, which is why I'm sharing this information with y'all tonight. So this video has been long enough. Like I said, I apologize. The phone's been bouncing. And I apologize if our eyes look like we all over the place because I normally don't have to do a video with both of us. So I'm here. But anyway, I'm gonna let y'all go. I hope you found this video informative. If you have questions, please reach out, ask. I'm pretty responsive to my comments and whatnot. And join a Facebook support group. There's a lot of warriors, HS warriors in there online, asking questions, sharing ideas, and some of them just really need some support and encouragement. So anyway, thanks for tuning in. We'll talk to you later.